All right, let's look at some word problems. So you had $21.40 to spend on 7 pencils. After buying them, you have $3.20. How much did each pencil cost? So first we're going to define our variable. That always comes from our question. So what are we trying to find out? We're trying to find out how much the pencil costs. So I'm going to say C equals cost of pencil, something like that. Okay, and now for my equation, do this like chronologically. Do this in the order that it happens in real life. So you had $21.40. So that's where I started. I started off with $21.40. And then I spent is like subtracting money. So I spend money on 7 pencils. So I'm buying 7 pencils. 1 pencil costs C dollars, but I'm buying 7 of them. So 7 times C. And then after I bought them, I have $3.20 left over. See how I did that kind of in the order that it would happen in real life. I start with the $21, I pay for the pencils, and now I end up with $3.20. Then I can solve the problem. So I'm going to subtract 21.40 since it was a positive. And let's see, I get negative 7C equals, I'm going to just do this off to the side real quick, 21.40 minus 3.20, and borrow, I get $18.20, negative 18.2. Then I can divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7, so I get C equals, let's do 7 into 18.2, goes into 18 2 times, which is 14, 4 left over, bring down my 2, 7 goes into 42 6 times, so I'm getting 2.6, but my answer, think back, I'm talking about the cost, so this is really $2.60. Don't forget to add that 0 because it's money. We want to make sure it looks like money. All right, you bought 14 more cards to add to your baseball collection. Half of your baseball cards got wet and were ruined. How many did you begin with if you now have 32? So my question I'm trying to figure out is how many cards did I begin with? Okay, so C equals cards to begin or something like that. Beginning number of cards, whatever. Okay, again, I'm going to go through this chronologically. So I start off with cards. I have C cards. I bought, so I added 14 cards to my collection. So my collection plus 14, and then half of my baseball cards are wet and ruined. So I'd like to divide by 2 to cut it in half, and now I have 32 cards left over. There's another way you could write this, so I'll show you that, but I don't like it quite as much. So you could again start with your C cards plus the 14 more, and then take 1/2 of that. So do 1/2 times that equals 32. Either of these works just fine. I just like the first way better, but it does not really matter. Okay, then we're going to solve it. So since it's all this stuff divided by 2, we're going to multiply by 2 to kind of clear that fraction out. So now we've got C plus 14 equals 64. Subtract 14. C equals 50. So we have 50 cards, or baseball cards. All right, Skippy's Go-Karts rents go-karts for $12.20 plus $4 per hour. Jill paid $40.20 to rent a go-kart. For how many hours did she rent the go-kart? So here's my question, how many hours? So H for hours, or hours rented, something like that. And my equation, they rent them for $12.20 plus $4. But it's not just $4, it's $4 per hour. So times however many hours. So 4H, or 4 times H. Jill ends up paying, after she does all of that, she pays $40.20. There's my equation. Then to solve it, I'm going to subtract the 12.20. So I get 4H equals, let's see, 0, 0, equals 28. and then divide by 4. So h equals 7, which is 7 hours. Remember, think back about what your units is, 7 hours. Okay, let's do some inequalities. Remember, we're going to solve these just like one-step equations. So right now it's adding -9, so I'm going to subtract -9. Remember, that is the same thing as adding +9. So I'm really going to add 9 to both sides. So I get P, 9 plus -3 is +6. And then my sign was a greater than sign, so I'm going to keep it greater than sign. Then to graph it, I've got 6. I have to have that number. Then I just like to put 1 on either side. And I write so big that I like to skip count. So I'm going to put an 8 over here and a 4 over here just to make it easier. Then my circle goes on 6. It's an open circle since it's just a greater than symbol. Okay, so we don't shade it in. And then I plug in a number to see which way to shade. So I'm going to plug in 8 is greater than 6. 8 is greater than 6, so I'm going to shade towards the 8 and put my arrow at the end because it keeps going on forever. All right, next one. So it's multiplying by -8. I'm going to divide by -8. Divide by -8. So I have 8 going into 112, goes into 11 one time, 3 left over, bring down my 2, goes into 32 4 times. So it looks like I'm getting 14. It is a negative divided by a negative, which makes it positive. So I have F, I have positive 14. The one trick is here, I am dividing both sides by a negative. Remember, when you divide or multiply both sides of the inequality by a negative, you're going to have to switch your inequality sign. So instead of a less than or equal to sign, it's going to be a greater than or equal to sign. And then to graph it, let's see, I have 14. I'm going to put a 16 and a 12. It's a closed circle on 14. Close it up because it's or equal to. And then again, I'm just going to plug something in. So 16 is greater than 14. Yes, it is. So I'm going to shade towards the 16 this time. All right, next. This is dividing by 5, so I'm going to multiply by 5. So 33 times 5, let's see, 15, carry my 1, 16. It was a negative times a positive, so negative 165. And y. This time I do not switch my sign, because this step right here, I multiplied both sides by a positive. It doesn't matter that that 33 was negative. The 5 that I was multiplying on both sides, that was positive, so I don't switch my sign. So y is greater than or equal to negative 165. Let's see if I can squeeze these numbers in here because I write so big. So negative 165 is right there. And remember, since we're writing these on the negative side, that's like opposite world. So I'm really, like, the bigger numbers are going up to the left, the smaller over to the right. So this is going to be like negative 163, and this one's negative 167, something like that. Okay. Then it is a closed circle on negative 165, because it's or equal to, and then plug something in. So I like to think way down here on the right is the 0 and then like the positive numbers. So those positive numbers are going to be greater than the negative 165. So I'm going to go towards the positive numbers for this one. And our last one, it's adding. So subtract 4 2/3. Subtract 4 2/3. So they're both negative, so I'm really going to end up adding these. And I'm going to go ahead and give them common denominators, so turn them both into sixths. So I've really got 6 5/6 plus 4 4/6. When I add those, I get 10 9/6, which I need to simplify. So 9/6 is the same as 1 3/6, so I'm going to add that. So I got 11 3/6. And then let's go ahead and simplify that again, 11 1/2. So I have k is less than 11 1/2, but it was negative. They're both negative, so it's negative 11 and 1/2. Okay, to graph this, luckily since it's just a half, that's kind of in between numbers, so I'm just going to put negative 12, negative 11, negative 10. And think about it, it's negative 11 and an extra half, so it's really going to go between the 12 and the 11 here. It's an open circle, and then the numbers that are less are to the left, so I'm going to go more to the left here. And that is it, you guys.